We want to give them the same amount of time as the association. You're recognized.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, delegation. My name is Attorney Stephen Sepulveras, and I'm actually an attorney that's been working with the Friends of Poinciana Villages. And basically, I just want to touch on some of the dynamics of the voting and why we're here today and why the bill was proposed, and I think that it might shed a lot of light on what's going on. As you've been told earlier today, that the villages of Poinciana are made up of 9 villages. Now, of the 9 villages, we have 8 of those villages that are still controlled in one fashion or another by Avatar, the developer. Now, it's either through an employee or an appointee of Avatar Homes. Right now, according to our statistics, about 97% of the properties have been sold off. Now, at this point, there's a total of 35 seats that would be open, actually. And of those 35 seats from the village level, 25 of those seats, 71%, are still controlled by Avatar, even though it's been sold off 97%. This is why they've got this stranglehold on the community. And I think that at least, at a minimum, if we could extend the hours of voting, as the bill does propose, that would probably take care of quite a bit. It also should be mentioned that, and I know that some of you are very fluid on this, that if we can bring down the cost, maybe do away with the thought of a certified mailing and make it bulk mailing, and see if we could cut down on some of the potential fraud that Mr. LaRosa was speaking of by having those ballots notarized. And finally, I would like to also state that my colleague and law partner, Christopher Wright, would actually like to have a chance to discuss some of the issues that Representative Comey had brought up earlier with Senator Soto today that I think might help inform me of what's going on as well with the vacant lots.
Chairman.
You're recognized.
Yeah, before we get any further, help me understand if Avatar only now owns 3%, there's 97% owned by somebody else, how do they continue to control? There's got to...
It's an excellent question. What they're basically doing, they should have relinquished control over it, of the community in January 1st of 2012. Since then, what they've managed to do is, through the voting, that they kind of show up and actually pledge a lot of votes that they presume that they still have, and they back certain candidates that they feel would be sympathetic to their view. Okay, so what we've had.
How do you pledge something you don't have?
Very good. Nobody is challenging it. Nobody had challenged that until this year. So that's why we're here today. As a matter of fact, we're here as a result of that.
So one more time. So there's only, of all the lots, total lots in Poinciana, all the villages, 97% of those are sold and only 3% remain.
If I may.
This will come into, may my colleague come in?
Yeah.
Sure.
Thank you, Representative Comby. If I may, I actually have a count, and this is according to the property appraiser's website. In Village 1, which has over 5,600 homes, Avatar controls 94. In Village 2, there are just shy of 4,000 homes, and Avatar controls 25. In Village 3, it's just shy of 5,000, and they control 123. In Village 5, it's just shy of 2,200, and they control 18. In Village 7, it's a little over 8,000, and they control 235. In Village 7, it's a little under 1,600, and they only have 7 lots. But if you look at the number of lots that they control in proportion to the number of seats that they have on the village level, well, just looking at Village 1, where they only hold 94 lots, they still have 3 out of the 5 seats. That's 60%. In Village 2, either Avatar directly controls the seat or used their votes to put in people, and so they control 100%. There was actually somebody running against one of the board members in Village 2, collected 150 lots on his own. He went out, he knocked doors, he talked to people. Avatar swoops in, pledges a bunch of votes in one fell swoop, and he gets beaten. It's the same pattern over and over again. You know, Avatar insists that they have 1,500 votes in certain villages. But nobody's counted that. Nobody's certified that vote. The other thing is they make it difficult to access the polls, 12 to 7. Well, as you guys are aware, getting down to Poinciana by 7 o'clock is a challenge sometimes. I mean, I've driven it a few times myself, and I've left my home, which is in Lake Nona, at 4 o'clock, and I didn't get down there till 6:30. And then to make it to the polling place by voting at 7, it's got, even if we did 7 to 7, it's going to be a challenge to get people out and let their voices be heard. And that's really what this is about. Let the people be heard. Look, if we give an opportunity for the people to show up and they don't, you know, the only people they have to blame is themselves. But if we do everything that we can do to give them an opportunity to be there, make sure the vote count is correct, give them the opportunity to be there, vote by proxy, get the notice ahead of time so that they're informed, know what the procedure is to get their name on the ballot if they want to run. If we do all of those things and they still don't show up to vote, the only people they've got to blame is themselves. But I'm confident that if we take the steps like Senator Soto has proposed, that the people are going to show up. And they're going to make sure that the people they want to lead them are in those offices.
I had a question. What's the turnout percentage right now?
For voting, once.
This package. What was the total number that showed up? About 300 out of 26,000.
300 votes for all 9 villages at last election.
And how many eligible voters are there? How
Sorry?
many eligible voters are there?
Well, there are 26,000 lots in Poinciana, so between the 9 villages, you could potentially have 26,000 votes, and 300 residents showed up. So
So a little more than 1%.
So we've got to give them an opportunity to get to the polls. Everything that we can do to give them ensure that they have an opportunity to get to the polls and let their voices be heard. Like I said, if they don't come, they don't come. They lose the right to complain. But as a delegation, we can make sure that opportunity is provided. And I think that Senator Soto's bill will go a long way to help make that happen.
Members, other questions? Senator Stargill, you're recognized.
Sorry, I have a couple questions for
You're
series.
recognized for a series.
And I appreciate the extra time. I guess I'm having a little bit of a problem understanding how the whole voting process for Poinciana villages and the proxy, and when you say Avatar controlled, do you mean somebody that Avatar has backed, or do you mean somebody from the corporation? Help me with what you've defined as Avatar controlled would be helpful.
It's actually a combination of the two. Some are employed directly by Avatar, and others are in office specifically because Avatar backed them.
Do they live in a home there? Do they have the ability? I mean, everybody.
Some of them do, yes.
Okay, so you say Avatar control, but it just means they may have been selected by the people, and you believe that Avatar is in the same way that some people will say that a politician's backed by big business or business controlled. Is that what you're meaning in that scenario, or do you mean literally controlled by someone of Avatar?
Is there some kind of legal binding that requires them to vote in accordance with Avatar? No.
Okay.
But it was because of Avatar's votes that they hold the seat they do. Otherwise, they would have lost the seat to somebody else.
But Avatar has 3% of the total ability
Of the
to
9
vote.
villages, they have 3% of the land left.
Okay.
Not been challenged before.
And so you're saying, and the elections are happening with only 300 votes total?
Of the residents that showed up, yeah.
So of those 300 people, then you're saying a large majority of those 300 supported Avatar people?
No, almost all of those 300 supported residents having seats on the board. And then what would happen is Avatar would come in at the very last second and say, oh, you have 60 votes. I'm going to pledge 100 for this other candidate and give that person the seat. You know, obviously I'm not using specific numbers, but
So I think it's starting to make sense. If Avatar continues to have 3%, only 1% come out and vote. 3% beats 1%, 7 days a week.
granted, but the issue is enlarging the opportunity so that more than 1% come out.
Right. But I think that's the answer to the question. 3% beats 1% every day.
Okay, and then from my understanding earlier from speaking to the people who represented Avatar, it sounds as though they're capable of expanding voting hours, and there's a process within doing that. Have you gone that remedy first, or is your first remedy to change the law?
we've done that dance a few times with management, and
With new
unfortunately, we've
management,
not
with the
made
new
many
people?
strides with getting them to change policy, so.
And with the newer ones that have been there for the 2 years, you've not had any success in that conversation? Because that's, okay.
No, and decision-making for well, first off, our contention is that the sub-villages should be the ones controlling their own elections anyway. Somehow it's always been managed at the master level, but that's a discussion for another day and probably in court. But, you know, the issue here is that, you know, we gotta give an opportunity for the people to get out there and vote their
And
interests.
that opportunity is 7 a.m. to 12. That's what's going to be the magic.
I think they said it was going to be 12 to 7, I think, this time around.
No,
We're looking
12
to expand it
12
from...
to 7 is what it is currently, they said.
Right. We're looking to expand that so
From
they have
7
some
to
hours
7.
in the morning before you go to work, have a couple hours in the
Right.
evening
So-
after you come home.
The additional hours of 7 a.m. to 12 that this bill is going to be able to encourage the other
Right.
thousands of people to show
Right.
up.
And
in your opinion.
the other point that we have here is the voting by, that's what I said, 7 to 7. The other point that we have here was the voting by proxy. Right now, the documents don't allow for voting by proxy. And there are a lot of folks out there that work crazy hours, can't manage to get out there. And I think that if all they had to do was go out and get a form signed and have a notary, you know, click their stamp on it, they'd be more inclined to exercise their right. We've been out for the last few weeks canvassing the town, and I've spoken to a lot of folks. And I got to tell you, the vast majority of them are really upset with the way things are run out there, but they feel like they're like a beaten dog, like they don't want to take the time to come out and vote because they feel like Avatar always wins anyway. You know, we need to give them the voice that they otherwise don't have.
Well, and I guess as we go further, and this might be more comment, and the voting issue is one, but I guess what I would like to hear maybe from some of the people as well is what's the genesis of the need, what's not being provided for the community that is so vital that changing the board is going to solve those ills?
Well, I'll definitely let some of the other folks stand up and give you some more detail, but I know one specific issue is definitely fiscal responsibility, and I'm sure the others will go into a little more detail when they have an opportunity to speak about that.
You're recognized for a series.
Thank you, Chairman. Gentlemen, and I apologize because I walked in a few minutes late. Are you guys with a specific law firm, or are you guys attorneys?
Yes, sir, we are. My name's Chris Wright. This is Stephen Sepulveris. We actually own our own practice. We've been helping the Friends of Poinciana Villages get organized and given
Just
it
interrupt for a moment, did you all fill out speaker
We're-
cards yet?
Val did. Val
Okay, we
did.
need you for the record.
Okay.
This is Representative Dolores.
Absolutely.
Good point. And the note Esquire on there, so
All right,
for the
we'll
record.
do. We'll do.
I just wanted to assess.
No, thank you.
Continue, sorry,
About
Representative.
his specific question.
Gentlemen, what is your background in HOA law, I guess?
I've been a member of the bar for 5 years. Before I was a member of the bar, I actually was a licensed title agent, so I have a pretty extensive background in real property. Since being a member of the bar, I practice predominantly in bankruptcy, foreclosure, and HOA work. I keep it small. I only have 3 homeowners associations that I currently represent. They range in size from 187 homes to a little over 2,500 homes. So my portfolio, I'm afraid, is not as big as Mr. Slayton's, but it's it's a work in progress, right? But yeah, about 5 years now I've been doing real property, and a big portion of that's been on homeowners association work. Yeah.
And I'm not asking that question to discredit you or anything. I'm just trying to understand the background. And if you don't mind answering that same question.
It's basically the same answer that Mr. Wright had actually mentioned, except I've been a member of the bar for 4 years. Prior to that, I was a stockbroker on the Florida New York Stock Exchange, dealing with a lot of real investment in real estate investment trust known as REITs.
Thank you.
So that's how my love of property law came in from my time in Wall Street.
Have you gentlemen ever created documents for another HOA or had to represent another developer or organized group in an HOA dispute?
Developer, no. But HOAs, yes. Yes, I'm actually prosecuting 2 foreclosures for another HOA now. I haven't had to do any of the base governing documents, but I have done changes to a governing document, deeds, easements, that kind of stuff.
And just because I'm not an attorney, prosecuting a foreclosure, what exactly does that mean?
Prosecuting foreclosure.
Sending out proper notices, filing the liens, filing the intent to foreclose, drafting the complaint, going to all the hearings associated with foreclosing on an HOA.
It should be noted that in my 4 years, I've actually conducted hundreds of hearings on foreclosure prosecution, both for the bank and the debtor.
Okay, so you've foreclosed on properties
Correct.
because of obviously non-payment or delinquent issues. Okay, then can you help, this is why I'm asking these questions, can you help me understand why this situation is unique to Poinciana? Because this bill in front of us today is not just about Poinciana, it's about all HOAs in Osceola County, which from the records I have from the DBPR would affect hundreds of thousands of people. And then I'd like to take it one step further and say, what is so unique about Osceola County HOAs that a discussion shouldn't be had across the board for all 67 counties, which would now affect millions of people? And that information is available on the DBPR website, so I'm just trying to kind of narrow down to say we're carving out law just for a specific issue, but it's not just the issue, it's for an entire county, so we're bringing in thousands of others. Why aren't we talking this on a much larger grand level? And I'm hoping that your experiences can tell me that.
Okay, well, there's a couple of parts to your question, so let me try to break it. What makes Poinciana unique is probably its size. I think the last count, at least according to landmass, it's the largest in the country. Now, ours is also have the added benefit of being unique because it straddles 2 counties, which complicates matters a little bit. But that's what makes it unique. How many homeowners associations do you know that have a rec department, that have a public works department? I mean, it's unique in that respect. I mean, I've done a few homeowner associations. The most they have to squibble about is who left their trash cans out at the end of the day. I mean, Poinciana is definitely unique because of its size. Now, as far as why are we doing this on a local level instead of a statewide level, well, some of these things maybe need to be taken up at a statewide level. But in the interim, why could we not help these folks get the relief they need in the immediate future and then also take it to a statewide? I mean, expanding voting times and allowing for proxy votes, I don't see how any other association, no matter how small, would not benefit from that. It would allow their residents to get out and vote and be heard as well. Now, there needs to be another discussion about the developer and whether or not you can deny a developer a right to vote. And I know Mr. Slayton brought up a couple of points earlier. That's something that needs to be researched. But as far as the other points, I mean, I don't see how any HOA would not be benefited from the added influence of having their members get out and vote and giving them access to the tools that they need to be able to make their voice heard. Did I get all your parts? I don't know if I missed one.
Well, I think the big question is, how does this differ from other HOAs in the county? Because we're affecting hundreds of thousands of people.
Well, right, but the legislation that Senator Soto is proposing only benefits all associations. It doesn't. I mean, it specifically addresses our concern because we need to have some fundamental changes in the way our elections are conducted so that the people can have an opportunity to take control of their community. Obviously that's going to depend on how many turn out. But even if we take the rule that we're setting up because of these folks and apply it uniformly to every association in the county, how could they not benefit from those rules, I guess would be my point. So yes, we're carving out a little piece of legislation for the specific purpose of redressing Poinciana, but if it is applied countywide, how would that not help? I guess would be my answer to your question, which I suppose is kind of self-explanatory.
I think we heard it from both sides today when the former President Renato Ward had mentioned. I think that there is a meeting of the minds on one issue, that people who work 9 to 5 need an opportunity to get their voice heard. And in that way, I do think that could expand countywide for Osceola, that it would actually benefit the homeowners
and even at
on that level alone.
And even at that point, if we were to take it to the next step and put it into General Assembly and apply it to the state, how would every association statewide not benefit from the increased access to the voting system?
And that's our job, is we make state laws.
Sure.
I'm really concerned with narrowing down to a specific issue in a specific area, and one, making it even countywide. I think the discussion of let's see how we can benefit HOAs overall is probably the discussion that needs to be had and the approach that needs to be taken. I know that's not the genesis of this bill. The genesis of this bill is what's happening right now, right here, right now. I'm going to ask just one more question. I know
You're recognized for serious, as many as you need.
Can you tell me, is there any other county in the state of Florida that has any ability to regulate HOAs?
Does the county have
Is
the
any
ability?
county, of the 67 counties, is there any other county the ability to regulate HOAs in the form that this bill is asking for today?
I'm not aware of any. I don't know that it's ever been tried. I could certainly look into it if you'd like and get you an answer.
Okay.
But right now, I'm not aware of any, no.
In your opinion, would this hold up to the Florida Constitution, the way this is written and the way it's being presented?
The way it's currently drafted, I think the court may take issue with one or two of the paragraphs in there. But I know that discussion was kind of brought up earlier with Mr. Slade and then also with Mr. Soto. I think there's some things in there that could definitely pass constitutional muster. But, you know,
Especially if it's remedial and...
Right, remedial in nature, yeah, sure. So, you know, does it necessarily need to pass in its current form? No, but I think we can make some pretty good amendments to it that would allow it to survive a court challenge.
Okay.
Representative Cumby, you're recognized.
Well, first of all, let me say I agree with just about everything you said. I think that we ought to be looking for ways to create greater opportunity for people to vote. We've done it with political elections in the state. We've always been working to increase opportunity and access for people and for voters. So, but the problem I have with this, I don't know if we could get this passed if we all left here today and said we've amended this, we've taken out paragraphs 4, 5, and 6, and we've made some changes which have been proposed here. I don't know that we could get it passed if our, period, if our lives depended on it, because it does certainly set a precedence and kind of open the door. But again, it's not a bad idea. I don't know how any homeowners association would not benefit from having greater opportunity for their folks to vote, whether it's by mail, whether it's by proxy, however, but just greater opportunity. The problem, another problem I have with this, and I certainly have problems with the stuff in the back, which I never heard anything about Metro West or the lawsuit, but it jumped out at me. I'm like, this is going to be a problem. This isn't going to work. But it doesn't fix the Polk County problem. And so, I mean, and I'm hearing a little bit of what Representative LaRosa is saying, that it's almost like we need to work on this on a statewide basis. I mean, that we're state lawmakers. Instead of trying to fix this little problem here, maybe we can develop a fix that not only takes care of the Osceola portion, but the Polk portion, but the rest of the state, from Pensacola to Key West, this is covered. But even if it's a local bill, and the reason I say this is we got to get everybody to vote for it. And there will be, if there's something in here, especially when you look at the second page, there would be tremendous opposition to that we couldn't overcome, that would come from all over the state. But I like the idea, and we have HOA bills sometimes. I mean, there's been one or two since I've been in the legislature, and Mike came in at the same time as me. I don't know if there's anything this year. Obviously, there's opportunity for that if people have bill slots open. Senator Stargell and Senator Soto aren't bound by the same rules that we are. We have limits on what we can do because there's 120 members in the Senate. There's no limit on the number of bills they can file. But we do have that problem. But I think it's still possible, but it seems to me like, and I'm kind of taking off on what Representative LaRosa said, is we need to craft a statewide solution to this where there's really no downside to it at all. Now, the downside will be if it creates more opportunity and more people vote and 4% of the voters come out and then 4 beats 3, then Avatar's out. But, I mean, that's the way it should be. I would love to see a fair fight. And I don't like to tie people's hands behind their back, and I understand that a lot of folks are there working. I find it hard to believe that, I mean, with unemployment being what it is, that there's not enough people there, if they were interested in going to vote, that couldn't, turn out 4% out of all those. But, so be it. I'd still like to, help if I could, but I don't want to do something that's not going to work. I don't want to give you all false hope that we'll go file a bill when we can't get it passed. And then where does that leave Polk County if we just run with this alone? So we need to come up with something, a better plan.
Well, I confess that I don't have a whole lot of experience putting bills before the legislature, but are the two... John Yes, actually. Yes, actually. So, yeah, I don't have a lot of experience putting bills before the floor, but are they mutually exclusive? Could we not do both? Could we not do a local one and then also take it to the general floor for a statewide? I mean, at least it gives them an opportunity to take a vote on it. I mean, if it gets shot down, it gets shot down, but the opportunity is worth something, and certainly the people would appreciate it, I think. So something to consider.
Could it be couched in a way that this is almost like a test trial, and if it doesn't work, it doesn't work? I'm just spitballing here.
Just for clarification, even though we're not in a procedural posture where we answer questions.
Okay.
So that everybody understands what's going on, yes, you can do both. You could have a local bill and a regular bill. There is no trial balloon, though, type of bill. It's either a bill or not a bill. I want to, at this time, let everybody know we have copies of the amendment that Representative Cortez put forward that makes a few changes, and my assistant Martin Rivera has copies that he'll distribute. But the changes are, it adds in the recommendation about notarization of the vote by mail and proxy that was recommended, addressing Representative LaRosa's concern about fraud. It changes from certified mail to bulk mail to address the cost issue that was discussed by both the association and by council as a much more cost-effective alternative. It retains sections 1, 2, and 3 related to voting by proxy, voting by mail, 30 days written notice, and access to the polls from 7 a.m. through 7 p.m. But it removes all the other provisions that by council, and it appears by council here as well, have said that there would be a problem with constitutionality. So 4, 5, 6, and even Section 2, because honestly, under declaratory judgment action, this thing would be reviewed by the courts anyway. So that may be extraneous language, and we don't need to have attorney's fees then put in if we're just going to do it this way. So it would just simply say this act takes effect upon becoming law. Obviously, as I promised everybody this morning, we would try to keep this fluid to address some of the concerns in the fact-finding posture we're in right now. And Mr. Rivera will have copies of that. Any other questions for these witnesses? Yeah, sure.
So we're being fluid here. As far as your original response to Senator LaRosa, or Senator Representative LaRosa on other associations, there are several very large associations across the state, the villages. The situation that you guys are dealing with in Poinciana is not unlike what was dealt with in Seaside, which had a bunch of different areas. They actually came together and instead of going for incorporation, made themselves a body that worked like a corporation by coming together as a group with all the different areas of Seaside. And similar to Representative LaRosa, my concerns, and like I said, I chaired regulated industries and dealt with HOA issues. Not all HOAs are created the same. So to say that an HOA would, how would it not benefit them to let them vote or whatever, that would be accurate. But some HOAs don't have any problem in the area of getting their members to vote, or maybe allow proxy or whatever. And you're saying they have to do a 7 to 7, they have to mail everything out. And some of the HOAs that I'm a part of, because we own rental properties, I would rather spend the money of my HOA funds in a different way than in sending out mail for proxies and having to maintain and set a system to make sure that the people who are getting the mail are the people who are actually allowed to vote, and then the surety of making sure that the people who did vote were actually the ones who were eligible to vote, and clarifying. That's a laborious process. I mean, if you sit on any of our elections committees when talking about the supervisor of elections and how of making sure that the one person had their one vote. So it's not as simple, and this is going to be affecting all HOAs, from the little ones that are down to 20, 30 houses sometimes can be an HOA, to large ones. So that's the problem with, and there's no process in here of how you would do that. It's just kind of putting in some blanket statements of this is what we want to do. Unfortunately, we can't craft legislation that way because we're setting a law that's going to be the effect for everybody. And then the other part of it is when they don't follow the law, when you look at the remedy of how that's going to work, I mean, it's way more complicated. I wish I could say it's just so easy as to say, go forth and do this. That's why I was asking about the other remedies, because you want to change the law as your last remedy. I don't want, we'll have laws, if we tried to write laws for every problem that happened in the state, we would have law books way bigger than what we have now. So that's why I was asking your remedy with the current HOA, and what have you done to that end? And it sounded from the conversations earlier that they might be amenable to expanding. I don't know. I can't speak for them. I'm just saying we want to go exhaust those remedies first before just changing the law to affect a village or a organization in a county that's having something that appears to be unique to just you guys, and therefore passing a law that's going to affect everybody with a potential unintended consequence.
With that comment, if there's no other questions, since we have other speakers, I'd like to curtail other comments till we have debate, if that's okay.
Chairman, I have a question.
Sure.
This question would be maybe towards the bill sponsor, and now it's new amended form.
Sure.
I don't know, again, if I'm asking you. I want to ask Representative Cortez because it's going to be specific to the House. First off, I get criticized from time to time because I don't consider local government. Many times it's because the state is mandating something. And I try to be cognitive of that, and I believe that this is a mandate back down to the local government by saying, here you go, deal with this, you've got to now add this additional regulation. Have you corresponded with Osceola County? Is Osceola County okay moving forward if this regulation was to be mandated upon them?
I talked to Commissioner, they were trying to get an ordinance to coincide with this.
The mic's on.
Your microphone.
I talked to Osceola County, they were trying to get an ordinance to coincide, we're working to coincide with this bill, so they could both work together.
Okay, is that something that the commission is
I have talked
talking
to,
about?
I talked to the Commissioner about this, and we talked about him putting it in front of the Commission to talk about it.
Do you mind if I ask which commissioner?
Commissioner Harford.
Okay.
One other addition to that, this isn't enforced by the county, so we're not saying that the county has to enforce it. There's nothing in there that says the commission is the enforcer of anything. It's a local bill, but it's only enforced by really a declaratory judgment in the court. So it wouldn't require the county to do anything under the terms of the bill.
And please, I apologize for my not understanding of how our supervisor election works, but would the county be required to assist them in any additional expenses?
The supervisor of elections part is taken out in the amendment
Okay.
per the delegation's concerns.
Okay. So then would it be safe to say that we can strike Osceola County from the language of this bill and run this as a traditional bill
Osceola,
as a legislator?
I mean, there's always that additional option, but Osceola County is included in here in reference to the location of it being a local bill.
Does Osceola, and again, I'm sorry to keep on going into some of these details, but does Osceola County have any other, is there any laws on the books that state Osceola County, that this only exists in Osceola County, whether it's HOA legislation or whether it's something else? I'm just not aware of something. I'm trying to kind of find the correlations.
There are other ordinances that they've done related to Crescent Lake is an improvement organization. What's it, a community?
Yeah,
So they've done some unique creatures of local associations based upon authorization and statute.
But there's not statutes out there saying Osceola County, that only this can happen in Osceola County, because that's what this is saying, that only this.
That's correct. This is a local bill, so it would only apply in this
Are there other
county.
statutes that exist that things of this nature, whether it's HOAs or whether it's selling of some type of product, only exist in Osceola County?
I mean, I know we've passed local bills before, if that's what you're saying, but I'd have to look to see if there's something similar to this.
I'm just trying to go back to what it is we're trying to do and what it is surely our responsibility. And I believe it's to look at this from a state level. And if these are legitimate concerns. And I've run HOA legislation, and I've passed HOA legislation in the past. And it's not an easy thing to do. And there's a lot of back and forth and back and forth. But when there's a real problem, it can get done. And I think that if this is a real problem, there's probably other HOAs outside of Osceola County that would share a similar sentiment.
Well, I look forward to sponsoring the bill with you.
Well, I'll tell you what I've done, because I think we're focused on Poinciana. I've asked the Regulatory Affairs Committee in the House to workshop HOA issues and problems and hopefully invite constituents to explain what else is happening. And maybe that is a bill, that we sponsor together. But again, I think that we're not focusing on some of the elements that we really need to truly improve the Poinciana community, and focusing on something like this that I don't understand. I don't see why we're doing this just for Osceola County, because Poinciana doesn't just sit in Osceola County, it also sits in Polk County.
Yes, I understand those things, and we have lots of people testifying, so unless there's any more questions, if there's any debate, we should probably reserve it for debate, because we have lots of speakers here today. So any other questions before we move on? Okay, next up.